The wedding ceremony itself is less about vows of eternal love and more about public declaration and ritual purification. On the wedding day, you undergo a series of traditional rites. You might take a ritual bath in water brought from a sacred spring, symbolizing purity and fertility. You offer sacrifices to goddesses like Hera, the goddess of marriage and childbirth, and Artemis, goddess of virgins, seeking their blessings for a fruitful union. Your hair, once worn long, might be cut short, a symbolic transition from maidenhood to married life, or perhaps like styled in an elaborate updo. The scent of incense and sacrificial offerings mingles with the nervous energy. Hey guys, tonight we're taking another gentle stroll through the annals of history. But this time, our journey isn't about grand battles or philosophical debates. Tonight, we're going to explore a different, perhaps more intimate side of ancient Greece. We're stepping into the sandals of a woman, a free-born woman, and uncovering what life was really like when society, quite literally, treated you like property. Imagine the warm Mediterranean breeze on your skin, the distant chatter of the agora, the scent of blooming oleander. But despite the beauty, your world is framed by invisible walls. Honestly, if you're used to modern freedoms, you probably wouldn't survive a single week without being utterly bewildered. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Now, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is, so we can embark on this journey together. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You open your eyes for the first time, not into a world of endless possibilities, but into a meticulously predefined space. Your very position dictated by the simple fact of your birth. You are born a girl in ancient Greece, and from that very first cry, your fate, your purpose, and your fundamental status are already predetermined. This isn't a world where you'll dream of becoming a philosopher like Plato, a playwright like Sophocles, or a military leader like Pericles. Those paths simply do not exist for you. Your existence is immediately, intrinsically, and legally bound to the men in your life. Not in a poetic sense, but in the most literal, proprietary way. Your first master, if you can call him that, is your father. From the moment you enter the world, you are his responsibility, his possession, and his future investment. He makes every decision concerning your life your name, your upbringing, your education or lack thereof, and ultimately, your marriage. Your early childhood is not a period of unbridled exploration or personal discovery. Instead, it is a meticulous preparation for your eventual role as a wife and mother, a delicate vessel to be shaped and polished for a singular purpose, ensuring the continuation of the family line and the stability of the household. Your value is measured not by your intellect or your individual spirit, but by your ability to produce legitimate heirs, particularly sons, and to manage a household efficiently. Imagine your infancy. You are nurtured, fed, kept warm. But even then, the whispers around you hint at your future. Your male siblings, your brothers, are celebrated with greater fanfare. Their birth might be marked with an olive wreath hung on the door, symbolizing strength and victory, while yours might be a simple woolen ribbon, symbolizing domesticity and weaving. You are loved, perhaps by your mother, but even her love operates within the confines of a system that sees her, and by extension you, as subservient. This subtle difference in celebration, even at birth, imprints upon you the societal hierarchy that you will navigate for the rest of your life. As you grow from infancy to early childhood, your world is largely confined to the oikos, the household. This is your domain, your school, your entire universe. You spend your days learning from your mother and the female slaves, if your family is wealthy enough to own them, the skills deemed appropriate for your gender. You learn to spin wool, transforming raw fibers into thread, the rhythmic whir of the spindle a constant soundtrack to your childhood. You learn to weave, meticulously interlocking threads to create intricate patterns for tunics, cloaks, and blankets. The scent of lanolin and fresh linen becomes as familiar as your own breath. You learn to manage a household, to prepare meals over an open hearth, the smoky aroma clinging to your clothes. You learn to fetch water from the communal fountain, balancing heavy clay hydrii on your head, your neck strengthening with each trip. Your hands, from a young age, are trained for domestic labor, for tasks that ensure the comfort and well-being of the male members of your family. Your education, unlike that of your brothers, is not intellectual. You will not attend public schools, where boys learn rhetoric, philosophy, mathematics, and military tactics. You will not engage in athletic competitions in the gymnasium. Your world does not include the public sphere, the agora, the assembly, or the temples except for specific religious festivals. Your learning is practical, domestic, and moral. You are taught how to be chaste, obedient, and silent. Silence, indeed, is often emphasized as a virtue for women. A woman's greatest glory is to be least talked about among men, whether for good or for bad. A famous Athenian orator once said, a sentiment that would likely be drilled into your young mind. You learn to lower your gaze, to speak only when spoken to, and to keep your opinions to yourself, especially in the presence of men. Your voice, even if you possessed eloquent thoughts, is not for public consumption. It's almost like an ancient Greek version of don't talk to strangers, combined with seen but not heard, except it applies to almost everyone. Your physical appearance is also meticulously managed. You are taught modesty, to dress simply, covering your body adequately. Your hair might be styled in specific ways, braided or tied, reflecting local customs. While cosmetics existed, excessive use might be frowned upon, suggesting vanity or loose morals. Your body is not entirely your own. It is a vessel, a potential bearer of children, and thus its purity and modesty are paramount for the family's honor. Any perceived transgression, any hint of immodesty, could bring shame upon your father and your entire household, diminishing your value in the eyes of potential suitors. Your social interactions are severely limited. Your playmates are likely your female siblings, your female cousins, and the daughters of your mother's closest female friends. You will not mix freely with boys after a certain age. Your father or a male relative would always accompany you if you needed to leave the house for anything beyond fetching water. The world outside the oikos is largely off limits, a dangerous male-dominated sphere where your reputation could be easily sullied. Your innocence, your virginity, are guarded fiercely, as they directly impact your marriage prospects and your family's honor. This intense focus on chastity and domesticity stems from the primary role assigned to you producing legitimate heirs. For a citizen male, ensuring the legitimacy of his children was paramount for inheritance and the continuation of his lineage. And the only way to guarantee legitimacy, in their view, was through the absolute control and seclusion of women. You are the keeper of the family's bloodline, and thus your movements, your thoughts, even your desires are meticulously regulated. It's an interesting philosophical jump, isn't it? From democracy for all male citizens to absolute control over female bodies for societal order, the logic is uniquely ancient. One unique detail you might observe is the presence of female dancers and musicians at male symposia, who were often hetairai or enslaved women, educated and skilled, but never respectable citizen women. This contrast starkly highlights the roles permissible for different categories of women. You, as a citizen girl, are taught to be modest and unseen, while these other women, often foreign or enslaved, are allowed to display their talents publicly, albeit in a morally ambiguous context. This paradox reinforces the rigid social boundaries you inhabit, the ultimate goal of your upbringing. From your very first breath is marriage. Your childhood is a period of waiting, of preparation. Your emotional attachments are encouraged towards your family, particularly your father, as he holds the power over your future. The idea of choosing your own husband or falling in love before marriage is almost entirely alien. Marriages are arranged by your father or male guardian, based on family alliances, property considerations, and the promise of legitimate offspring. Your feelings are irrelevant. Your utility to the family unit is everything. This is a common historical fact across many ancient societies, where marriage was primarily an economic and social contract, not a romantic one. So, your early life as a freeborn woman in ancient Greece is a quiet, secluded existence, framed by the walls of your home and the expectations of your father. You are cherished, perhaps, but ultimately seen as a valuable piece of property, a vital asset to be carefully managed and transferred to another man's care when the time is right. Your purpose is not to shape the world, but to maintain the oikos, the very bedrock of Greek society, a silent, unseen pillar supporting the celebrated lives of its free male citizens. Your journey has just begun, a journey from one man's care to another's. With little agency of your own, you've taken your first breath. A girl in ancient Greece, and your childhood, as you now understand, is a meticulous apprenticeship for a singular, predetermined role, wife and mother. Your world, unlike that of your brother's, remains largely confined, its boundaries defined by the thick walls of the oikos, the household. This isn't a restrictive cage, not in the way a mine or a field might be, but rather a meticulously crafted cocoon designed to shield and shape you. Your days are a gentle yet relentless cascade of learning. The rhythmic whir of the spindle becomes as constant as your own heartbeat. You sit beside your mother, her hands, worn but skilled, guiding yours as you learn to transform raw wool into fine thread. The fibers, sometimes scratchy and coarse, sometimes soft and yielding, pass through your nimble fingers. The scent of sheep's wool, earthy and faintly lanolin, is ever present. You learn to spin quickly, efficiently, producing long, even strands. This isn't just a chore, it's a fundamental skill, a cornerstone of household management. A good spinner ensures a constant supply of raw material for weaving, and weaving, you'll discover, is the pinnacle of domestic female accomplishment. Next, you move to the loom. The wooden frame, tall and imposing, dominates a corner of the women's quarters. Organicon. Here, the scent shifts, taking on the faint aroma of fresh linen and the subtle tang of dyes. Your small hands learn the intricate dance of warp and weft, meticulously interlocking threads to create patterns. At first, your movements are clumsy, the fabric uneven, but with patience, guided by your mother's quiet instructions, your fingers gain precision, your patterns grow more complex. You learn to weave simple tunics, then elaborate cloaks, sturdy blankets, and perhaps even delicate tapestries. This skill is vital. Not only does it clothe your family, but it also reflects directly on your mother's competence and, by extension, your own future potential as a mistress of a household. A well-woven fabric, tight and even, is a silent testament to your diligence and skill. It's like learning to code, but instead of digital algorithms, you're mastering the ancient algorithms of thread. And your debugging involves untangling actual knots. Beyond weaving, your education expands to encompass the entirety of household management. You follow your mother through the oikos, observing her every move. You learn to manage the larder, carefully storing dried grains, olives, and salted fish to ensure the family has enough sustenance through all seasons. You learn about the herbs used for cooking and medicine, their distinct aromas filling the air as you crush them in a mortar and pestle. You become familiar with the upkeep of the house itself, sweeping the packed earth floors, meticulously cleaning pottery and bronze utensils until they gleam in the dim light, the clinking of pots, the faint scent of charcoal smoke from the hearth, the earthy aroma of freshly turned soil in the small household garden. These are the sensory markers of your daily education. Fetching water from the communal fountain is one of your few permitted excursions outside the immediate household. Imagine walking through the narrow, bustling streets, balancing a heavy clay hydria on your head, your neck strengthening with each trip. The air outside smells of humanity, sweat, dust, market goods, and the occasional whiff of incense from a nearby temple. You see other women, and sometimes enslaved individuals, performing the same task, their movements fluid and practiced. These trips are brief moments of connection, quiet exchanges of greetings, perhaps a shared glance that conveys a silent understanding of your shared female experience. You are always accompanied, never alone. A watchful eye ensuring your modesty and safety in the public sphere. Your intellectual education, unlike that of your brothers, is profoundly different. While boys delve into rhetoric, philosophy, mathematics, and military tactics in public schools and gymnasia, your learning is entirely practical, domestic, and moral. You will not attend lectures, debate the nature of justice, or engage in athletic competitions. Your world does not include the boisterous agra, the heated political assembly, or even most of the grand temples except for very specific, women-only religious festivals, which we'll get to later. Your learning focuses on how to be a chaste, obedient, and silent wife. Silence, indeed, is often emphasized as a supreme virtue for women. You are taught to lower your gaze, to speak only when spoken to, and to keep your opinions to yourself, especially in the presence of men. Your voice, even if you possessed profound thoughts or eloquent arguments, is not for public consumption. It is for the household, for your children, for your quiet conversations with other women. It's less about expressing yourself and more about perfecting the art of polite, supportive background music. Your physical appearance is also meticulously managed, not for personal vanity, but for the family's honor and your marriage prospects. You are taught modesty, to dress simply, covering your body adequately. Your hair might be styled in specific ways, braided, pinned, or tied reflecting local customs and status. While cosmetics certainly existed, often made from natural pigments or oils, excessive use could be frowned upon, suggesting vanity, idleness, or even loose morals. Your body is considered a vessel, primarily for bearing children, and therefore its purity and modesty are paramount. Any perceived transgression, any hint of immodesty or public display, could bring immediate shame upon your father and your entire household, significantly diminishing your value in the eyes of potential suitors. Your social interactions, consequently, are severely limited. Your playmates are primarily your female siblings, your female cousins, and the daughters of your mother's closest female friends. You will not mix freely with boys after a certain age, usually around puberty. If you need to leave the house for any reason beyond fetching water, you are always accompanied by your father, a male relative, or an elderly female slave. The world outside the oikos is largely considered male territory, a dangerous, unpredictable sphere where your reputation could be easily sullied by gossip or misinterpretation. Your innocence, your virginity, are guarded fiercely as they directly impact your marriage prospects and your family's honor. This strict segregation creates a distinct female culture within the home, a world of shared experiences, secrets, and subtle forms of resistance. This intense societal focus on your chastity and domesticity stems directly from your primary assigned role producing legitimate heirs for your future husband. For a citizen male, ensuring the legitimacy of his children was paramount for inheritance, the continuation of his lineage, and his standing within the community. And in their patriarchal view, the only way to guarantee this legitimacy was through the absolute control and seclusion of women. You are the sacred keeper of the family's bloodline, the purity of which ensures the future of the oikos. Thus, your movements, your thoughts, even your desires are meticulously regulated, not out of malice, but out of a deeply ingrained societal belief in male authority and the necessity of female seclusion for social order. It's an interesting philosophical jump, isn't it, from democracy for all male citizens to absolute control over female bodies for societal order? The logic is uniquely ancient. One unique detail you might occasionally observe: Perhaps from a brief glimpse during a public procession, or through hushed whispers in the women's quarters, is the stark contrast between your secluded life and that of other women. Female dancers and musicians performing at male symposia, drinking parties, were often hetairai, highly educated courtesans who often served as companions to elite men or enslaved women. These women, unlike respectable citizen women like you, were allowed to display their talents publicly, albeit in a morally ambiguous and often exploited context. This contrast starkly highlights the rigidly defined roles permissible for different categories of women in ancient Greek society. You, as a citizen girl, are taught to be modest and unseen, while these other women, often foreign or enslaved, are allowed a certain public presence, but always outside the bounds of traditional respectability. This paradox reinforces the rigid social boundaries you inhabit, creating distinct worlds for different women, the ultimate goal of your entire upbringing, from your very first breath, is marriage. Your childhood is a prolonged period of waiting, a continuous preparation for this momentous transition. Your emotional attachments are encouraged primarily towards your immediate family, especially your father, as he holds the absolute power over your future. The very idea of choosing your own husband, or falling in love before marriage, is almost entirely alien to your cultural understanding. Marriages are arranged by your father or male guardian, based on pragmatic considerations such as family alliances, the transfer of property dowry, and, most importantly, the promise of producing legitimate offspring. Your personal feelings, your desires, your intellectual compatibility with your future husband. These are largely irrelevant. Your utility to the family unit, your ability to perform your prescribed role, is everything. This is a common historical fact across many ancient societies, where marriage was primarily an economic and social contract, a strategic alliance between families, rather than a romantic union. Scholars still debate the extent of emotional bonds within arranged marriages, but it's universally accepted that love was not the primary basis for the union in most cases. So, your early life as a freeborn woman in ancient Greece is a quiet, secluded existence, meticulously framed by the walls of your home and the unwavering expectations of your father. You are cherished, perhaps within these confines, but ultimately you are seen as a valuable piece of property, a vital asset to be carefully managed and nurtured. You are being polished, not for your own brilliance, but to be transferred to another man's care when the time is right. Your purpose is not to shape the world beyond your doorstep, but to meticulously maintain the oikos, the very bedrock of Greek society. You are a silent, unseen pillar, supporting the celebrated public lives of its free male citizens. Your journey has just begun, a subtle transition from one man's care to another's, with very little agency of your own in this fundamental life decision. You've learned the meticulous duties of your childhood, every stitch of fabric, every trip to the fountain, preparing you for the most pivotal transition of your life marriage. This isn't a romantic tale of star-crossed lovers or a whirlwind courtship. Your wedding day, for all its ceremonial grandeur, is, at its core, a legal and economic transaction, a transfer of property from one male guardian to another. You are not choosing a partner. You are being exchanged. Imagine the days leading up to your wedding. Your household is abuzz with activity, but your role is largely passive. Your mother and female relatives might prepare your bridal attire, weaving your wedding tunic, perhaps dyed saffron or adorned with intricate patterns. The scent of fresh linen and beeswax fills the women's quarters. You participate in the rituals, your hands perhaps trembling slightly as you comb your hair, or as older women apply perfumed oils to your skin. You are aware of the significance of this day, not for your personal happiness, but for your family's honor and the continuation of your lineage. The air is thick with expectation, anticipation of a future you have no direct control over. The central act of the wedding is not a kiss, but a procession. As evening descends, you are escorted from your father's house to your groom's. This isn't a quiet walk, it's a public, noisy spectacle. You ride in a horse-drawn cart or chariot, often accompanied by your groom, and are followed by a boisterous procession of family and friends. They carry torches, symbolizing the light of your new household, and sing joyous wedding hymns. The sounds of pipes, drums, and flutes fill the night air. Crowds gather to watch, curious eyes taking in your modest veil and solemn expression. This public journey visually represents your transfer of guardianship, moving from your father's protection to your husband's. You are being delivered, literally, to your new home, your new master. It's less a joyful parade and more like the most elaborate delivery service ever. And you're the package. Upon arriving at your new husband's home, another series of rituals takes place. You are often offered nuts and dates by your mother-in-law, a symbol of fertility and abundance. You might be led over the threshold, not stepping on it, to ensure good luck. A traditional act involves scattering dried fruits and nuts over you, again to promote fertility. You are now formally integrated into your new household, the oikos of your husband. The scent of roasted meats and sweet wine now permeates the air, mixed with the faint smell of the lamp oil that illuminates your new domestic prison. The consummation of the marriage, the sexual act, is not necessarily tied to affection or desire on your part. Its primary purpose is procreation, the production of legitimate children, especially sons. This is the ultimate goal of your marriage, the raison d'etre for your entire upbringing. Your duty is clear to produce heirs who will carry on your husband's lineage, inherit his property, and perform his funerary rites. Your body, once guarded for its purity, is now expected to fulfill its reproductive function. Historians still debate the emotional reality of these arranged marriages. Some suggest genuine affection could develop over time, while others emphasize the often cold, pragmatic nature of the union. But for you, the initial experience is less about emotional connection and more about fulfilling a societal expectation. Your dowry, provided by your father, is a crucial element of the marriage. This isn't just a gift, it's a financial safeguard, a portion of your father's property that accompanies you into your husband's household. It remains legally yours, even though it's managed by your husband. If the marriage ends in divorce or if your husband dies, your dowry is supposed to be returned to your family. This economic arrangement underscores your status as property. Your value as a bride is directly linked to the size and quality of your dowry. It's a significant investment by your family, a material reflection of your worth. Once married, you become the curia of your new oikos, the mistress of the household. This sounds powerful, doesn't it? But your authority is strictly limited to the domestic sphere. You oversee the female slaves, if your husband owns any. You manage the daily provisions, ensuring there's enough food, water, and fuel. You continue to spin and weave, produce clothing for the family, and supervise the preparation of meals. Your domain is the women's quarters, the gynekon, a secluded area of the house where you spend most of your time. This separation from the male public spaces, the andron, where your husband entertains his friends, is fundamental to Athenian household design. You are powerful within your limited sphere, but outside of it, your influence is nil. Your social interactions remain largely confined to other women, your female relatives, your neighbors, and the wives of your husband's male friends. You might visit them, but always with permission and usually accompanied by a slave. The agora, the public markets, the political assemblies, the gymnasia. These are strictly male spaces, forbidden to respectable women. Your husband would expect you to be discreet, to remain largely unseen and unheard by men outside the family. Your reputation, still fragile, hinges on your modesty and adherence to these social norms. It's a peculiar kind of celebrity, isn't it? The less you're seen, the more respectable you become. Motherhood, particularly the birth of a son, elevates your status significantly within the household. Your primary duty has been fulfilled. You have provided a legitimate heir, ensuring the continuation of your husband's lineage. This brings you honor and security. Your position within the oikos becomes more secure, and your influence, especially over your children, grows. However, if you are unable to conceive, or if you only bear daughters, your position might become precarious. Your husband might seek a divorce or even take a phallic concubine to produce male heirs. This constant pressure to produce sons is a heavy psychological burden, a relentless test of your worth. Childbirth itself is a dangerous, often life-threatening ordeal in ancient Greece. Without modern medical knowledge or sterile practices, complications are common. Many women die in childbirth, a grim reality of the ancient world. You would rely on the assistance of female midwives and the blessings of goddesses like Eileithyia, goddess of childbirth. The sounds of labor, the cries of pain, would echo through the women's quarters, a stark reminder of the inherent risks you face in fulfilling your primary societal role. Your relationship with your husband is a complex tapestry woven with threads of obligation, respect sometimes, and perhaps, eventually, affection. He is your Kyrios, your master and guardian. He makes all major decisions concerning your life, your property, including your dowry, and your children. He expects obedience and loyalty, while some sources suggest that genuine emotional bonds could develop between spouses. The primary emphasis remained on fulfilling societal roles and maintaining the oikos. Love, as we understand it, was often sought outside of marriage by men with heterai or other free women. For you, intimacy might be a duty, and companionship a quiet solace found in shared domesticity. This is your life as a married woman in ancient Greece, a life of immense responsibility within the home, but almost no authority outside of it. You are the silent, efficient manager of the private sphere, ensuring the comfort and legitimacy of the male citizens who populate the public sphere. Your value, your purpose, your very existence remain intrinsically tied to your husband, who holds all the legal and social power. You are not a citizen in your own right. You are a citizen's wife, a crucial piece of his property, serving his needs and securing his legacy. You've been transitioned from your father's care to your husband's, becoming the Kyria of your new oikos, the mistress of the household. Your days are a constant cycle of managing domestic affairs, overseeing enslaved individuals, spinning, weaving, and hoping for the birth of a son. Your world is confined, yet within those walls you hold a certain power. But what happens when the fragile balance of your life is disrupted? When the very institution that defines your role, marriage, becomes a source of deep unhappiness? Or when its dissolution is forced upon you? Divorce and remarriage, far from being matters of personal choice, were complex legal and social procedures, still firmly in the hands of men. Imagine your life has settled into a routine. The scent of cooking from the hearth, the rhythmic click-clack of the loom, the playful shouts of children, perhaps a son has been born. Securing your position fill your days. You manage your household, perhaps finding a quiet contentment in your duties. You interact with other women, sharing recipes, gossip, and the quiet joys and frustrations of domestic life. You rarely leave the house, and when you do, it's veiled and accompanied, a fleeting glimpse of the bustling world beyond your walls. This is your existence, meticulously ordered, predictable. But then, the cracks begin to show. Perhaps your husband is unhappy with you. Maybe you have failed to produce a son, or a sufficient number of heirs. Perhaps he has simply grown tired of you, or found another woman he prefers, a hetaira he frequents in the city, or even another citizen woman he wishes to marry for political or economic gain. He holds the power of divorce. All he has to do is formally send you back to your father's house. This unilateral right for the husband to dissolve the marriage is a stark reminder of your precarious position. Your consent is not required. Your feelings are irrelevant. One day, you are a wife, a mistress of your oikos. The next, you are simply returned goods. Imagine the crushing humiliation of being sent back. You arrive at your father's house, your dowry hopefully returned with you, but your status irrevocably altered. You are no longer a wife, no longer a Kyria. You are a divorced woman, a burden to your father, and a source of potential shame for your family. The whispers would follow you, the knowing glances. You might have been blamed for the failure of the marriage, even if the fault lay entirely with your husband. Your chances of remarriage would depend heavily on the size of your returned dowry and your family's influence. But even then, you might only attract an older, less desirable husband, or a man of lower social standing. The bloom of youth. Once your most valuable asset would be fading, making remarriage an even greater challenge. Alternatively, your marriage might be dissolved not by your husband, but by your father. This could happen if your father discovers your husband has gravely mistreated you, or if he finds a more advantageous match for you, perhaps with a wealthier or more influential man. Your father, as your lifelong Karios, retains the right to take you back, to initiate a divorce on your behalf. While this might protect you from abuse, it still underscores your lack of agency. You are still being moved, like a pawn on a chessboard, by the strategic decisions of men. Your personal desires, your contentment, or unhappiness with your current husband are secondary to your father's calculations. Now, let's consider a grim historical fact for a woman. Being caught in adultery was a far more serious transgression, with potentially devastating consequences. While a husband could take a concubine without legal penalty, if you, as a wife, were discovered to be unfaithful, the legal and social repercussions were severe. Your husband was legally obliged to divorce you. You could be stripped of your dowry, lose all rights to your children, and face profound social ostracization. You might even be subjected to public humiliation or physical punishment. The double standard was blatant and brutal. Your chastity was paramount, while your husband's fidelity was optional. This legal disparity highlights the immense control men held over women's sexuality and bodies. It really makes you appreciate the concept of mutual respect in relationships, doesn't it? Like, honey, I love you, but if you step out, I can legally ruin your life. Fun. What if your husband dies? This could bring you a different kind of uncertainty. If you have adult sons, your status within the household might be secure. As your sons become your new guardians, your new kyrioi, you would likely live out your days under their protection, perhaps managing their households as you once did your husband's. However, if you are childless, or if your children are still young, your situation could become precarious. Your husband's male relatives might inherit his property, and you, as part of that property, might be quickly remarried off to a new husband, often chosen by them. You might be forced into a new marriage, purely for economic or familial reasons. Without your consent, your dowry would be transferred to the new husband, securing your basic needs, but your emotional well-being would be irrelevant. This could mean a rapid succession of husbands, each new marriage a fresh emotional toll. Remarriage for a woman was largely a pragmatic affair. Your age, your dowry, and your ability to bear children, especially sons, would be the primary considerations. A young, fertile widow with a substantial dowry would be a desirable match. An older woman, especially one past childbearing age or without a dowry, would find it much harder to remarry, potentially becoming dependent on her male relatives for the rest of her life. The societal pressure to be married and to be part of an oikos was immense. A woman without a male guardian was often vulnerable and socially marginalized. Consider the psychological burden of this constant uncertainty. Your entire security, your social standing, your very identity hinged on your relationship with a male guardian. Whether father, husband, or son, their decisions dictated your fate. The absence of true legal agency, the inability to initiate divorce yourself unless through your father, or to independently manage your own property, meant a pervasive sense of powerlessness. You were always a pawn in a larger game, moved by the hands of men. This quiet understanding would shape your resilience, forcing you to develop an inner strength to navigate a world that denied you outward control. This constant dependency, this subtle threat of abandonment or forced remarriage, instilled a deep-seated caution. You learned to be adaptable, to find comfort in routine, and to seek solace in the limited female communities within the oikos and among your close female relatives. Your life was a series of transitions, each one a transfer of guardianship from one male protector to another. You were property in a legal sense, but also a valuable, essential asset, whose well-being and productivity were crucial for the continuation of the family and the stability of society. Your story, therefore, is not one of individual triumph, but of enduring resilience within a deeply patriarchal system. You've navigated the complex landscape of marriage, divorce, and remarriage, all governed by the will of the men in your life. Your world remains largely confined to the oikos, the domestic sphere, but even within these walls, your spiritual and emotional needs require expression. This brings us to a unique aspect of your life in ancient Greece, the rare sacred occasions when you, a respectable citizen woman, were permitted, even required, to step outside your home and participate in religious festivals and rituals. These were some of the few precious opportunities where you could be seen, heard, and play a direct, though still controlled, role in the broader community. Imagine the days leading up to a major festival, perhaps the Thesmophoria, a fertility festival exclusively for married women, or the Panathenaia, a grand procession honoring Athena. The air within your oikos would subtly shift, a murmur of anticipation replacing the usual domestic hum. You would prepare your finest garments, perhaps a new peplos woven with care, and gather the necessary offerings, a basket of first fruits, a small animal for sacrifice, or a libation of wine. The scent of fresh olive oil used for anointing would mingle with the sweet aroma of baking bread and honey cakes, prepared for the offerings. These preparations, while still domestic, carried a heightened sense of purpose, a connection to something larger than your confined world. On the day of the festival, that you would step out of your secluded home, veiled, perhaps accompanied by female slaves or a trusted older female relative. The sunlight, so often experienced only through small windows, would feel bright and expansive on your skin. The sounds of the city, usually muffled, would swell around you, the chatter of crowds, the distant bleating of sacrificial animals, the rhythmic chanting of hymns. This was one of the few times you could walk through the public spaces, the agora or the sacred precincts, without fear of immediate censure. Though your movements would still be circumscribed by custom and modesty, you would move as part of a procession, a collective of women, finding strength and a sense of belonging in their shared presence. Participation in these religious rituals was not optional. It was a civic and spiritual duty. Women played a crucial role in maintaining the favor of the gods, ensuring the fertility of the land, the health of the community, and the prosperity of the oikos. You might join other women in solemn processions to a temple, carrying sacred objects or offerings. The rhythmic shuffle of feet, the low murmur of prayers, and the scent of burning incense would create a powerful, almost hypnotic atmosphere. You might stand before the altar, participating in the sacrifice, watching as the blood of the animal offering seeped into the earth, a tangible connection to the divine. This was a moment where your actions, your prayers, were believed to directly influence the well-being of your city-state, giving you a sense of agency, however fleeting, in the public sphere. The Thesmophoria, in particular, was a unique female-only festival dedicated to Demeter, the goddess of agriculture and fertility. For 3 days, married women would leave their homes and gather at a sacred precinct, performing secret rituals and sacrifices to ensure a bountiful harvest. This was a rare opportunity for women to gather independently, without male supervision, to exercise a form of collective power and ritual autonomy. Imagine the conversations, the shared experiences, the sense of camaraderie that would blossom in these secluded gatherings. It was a temporary escape from the male gaze, a space where female bonds and knowledge could be openly celebrated. It's like an ancient Greek women's retreat, but with more ritual sacrifice and definitely no Wi-Fi. Probably better for mental health, honestly. For girls, participation in certain rites often marked a transition to womanhood. Before marriage, You might participate in rituals like those at Broron, dedicated to Artemis or young girls, the Arctoi or little bears, engaged in athletic contests and dances. These prenuptial rites symbolized a period of wildness and untamed nature before entering the domesticity of marriage. Imagine the freedom, the exhilaration of running and dancing in the open air, a fleeting taste of physical liberty before the veils of marriage descended. This offered a brief yet significant opportunity for physical expression and communal bonding among young women. Beyond formalized festivals, your interaction with religion extended to daily household piety. You would participate in domestic rituals, offering libations to household gods, honoring ancestors, and performing small sacrifices. The scent of burning incense and the murmur of your prayers would fill your home. You would tend to the household altar, ensuring the gods were propitiated for the family's health and prosperity. This daily piety was an integral part of your identity and your role as Kyria, the one responsible for the spiritual well-being of the oikos. Your prayers, though private, were seen as essential for your husband's success in the public sphere. However, even within these religious contexts, certain limitations were ever present. While you participated in rituals, your public presence was still governed by modesty. You would be veiled, your movements demure, your voice hushed. Men were usually excluded from women-only rites, but in mixed processions or temple visits, your role was clearly defined as supportive, not leading. You did not hold positions of religious authority, such as high priesthoods, though there were priestesses dedicated to certain goddesses. These were specific, limited roles often tied to noble families and not open to all women. Your access to sacred knowledge, particularly philosophical or theological texts, would likely be non-existent, further reinforcing the intellectual divide between men and women. The role of women in religious life highlights a fascinating paradox within ancient Greek society. While excluded from political and intellectual life, and legally treated as property, women were deemed essential for maintaining cosmic and civic order through their religious duties. Their purity and piety were seen as vital for the well-being of the city-state. This belief granted them a unique, almost mystical power within the spiritual realm, a power that contrasted sharply with their earthly powerlessness. You were the conduit through which divine favor flowed, a crucial link between the human and the sacred. Historians still intensely debate whether the significant religious roles of women offered them a hidden form of power, or merely served as another way to contain and control them within predefined social boundaries. Your participation in public religious festivals also served a social function. It was a rare opportunity to engage with other women from outside your immediate circle, strengthening communal bonds and reinforcing shared cultural values. You would share news, exchange gossip, and reinforce the collective identity of women within the city. These moments, though circumscribed by ritual and social norms, provided a vital outlet for social connection and a temporary respite from the isolation of your daily domestic routine. You could observe the latest fashions, hear about marriages or births, and participate in the collective joys and sorrows of your community, the culmination of these religious activities. For you, was a profound connection to the divine. You felt a sense of purpose, of belonging, that transcended the mundane reality of your daily life. The rituals offered solace, hope, and a sense of cosmic order in a world where your personal agency was so limited. Your prayers for fertility, for health, for prosperity, were not just for your oikos, but for the entire city. You were a vital thread in the intricate tapestry of ancient Greek religious life, a silent, powerful force in the spiritual realm. Even as your voice remained unheard in the public square, you've experienced the rare freedom of religious festivals, the brief moments where your voice and presence held a sacred, vital purpose. But now you return to the confines of your oikos, where the realities of your legal and intellectual standing sharply define your daily existence. Your education, your property rights, your very voice all are meticulously controlled, often denied by the patriarchal structures of ancient Greece. Your early education, as you know, was primarily practical. You mastered the spindle and the loom, learned the secrets of household management, and absorbed the moral virtues of modesty and obedience. But what of intellectual pursuits? What of the grand ideas debated in the agora? The philosophical treatises that shaped the minds of men? The historical accounts that defined their world for you? Access to such knowledge was, with very few exceptions, non-existent. Your world was domestic, not intellectual. Imagine your brothers, or the sons of your male relatives, disappearing each day to the gymnasium or the public schools. They would return, animated by discussions of Homeric epics, mathematical theorems, rhetorical arguments, and the latest philosophical debates. You might hear snippets of their conversations, their excited chatter about geometry or the nature of justice. But these were alien concepts, outside your realm of understanding and access. You were not taught to read or write beyond the most basic level, if at all. While some wealthy women might have learned basic literacy for managing household accounts, formal education in literature, philosophy, or science was strictly reserved for men. Your mind, though capable of complex thought, was not trained for abstract reasoning or public discourse. It's like having a super fast internet connection, but your device only runs a single, very specific household management app. This intellectual segregation served a clear purpose to keep women focused on their domestic roles and prevent them from challenging male authority in the public sphere. An educated woman, one capable of critical thought and debate, might pose a threat to the established order. So, your access to knowledge was limited, carefully curated to reinforce your prescribed role. You might learn practical counting for household inventory, or how to read basic labels on amphorae, but a profound engagement with text, a deep dive into intellectual discourse, was simply not part of your destiny. Perhaps a very rare exception might be found among the hetaerae, those highly educated courtesans who often engaged in intellectual conversations with elite men at symposia. These women were often foreign-born, not respectable citizen wives, and their education served a different purpose, allowing them to provide intellectual companionship for men who found their wives too uneducated or secluded. Their knowledge, however, came at the cost of social respectability. You, as a citizen woman, would never aspire to such a life, even if it offered intellectual stimulation. Your honor and reputation were paramount. Beyond education, your legal rights were, to put it bluntly, virtually non-existent. You were not a legal entity in your own right. You could not conduct business, enter into contracts, or manage large sums of money independently. Every significant financial or legal transaction concerning you required the consent and direct involvement of your Kyrios, your father, then your husband, and upon his death, your adult son or nearest male relative. He was your legal guardian, your representative in all matters of law and property. Imagine wishing to buy a large piece of land, or perhaps engage in a significant trade venture. You might have excellent ideas, shrewd insights, but you could not act on them. Your male guardian would have to conduct the transaction on your behalf, and the property itself would be legally registered in his name, or under his management. This complete dependency on a male guardian meant that your voice in any legal sense was utterly silent. You were invisible before the law, your very existence mediated through a man. Historians still debate the practical implications of this legal invisibility. Some argue that women still exerted influence through their male relatives, while others emphasize the profound powerlessness it entailed. You could not inherit property directly from your father unless there were no male heirs. And even then, your inheritance often came with the obligation to marry your closest male relative and phikleros. This was to keep property within the family and prevent it from passing into another oikos. Your dowry, as you recall, was not truly your independent property. It was managed by your husband, and its return upon divorce or widowhood was crucial for your financial security, but still dependent on the legal actions of your male guardian. Even in matters of marriage and divorce, your legal voice was stifled. As we explored, your father or husband held the primary power to arrange or dissolve your marriage, while your father could divorce you from your husband if he deemed it necessary. Yeah, for severe mistreatment. You yourself could not initiate divorce proceedings in court. Your agency in these most personal of matters was, by modern standards, shocking. Your life was a series of transfers, legal changes of ownership from one male guardian to another, with little recourse for your own desires or well-being. Your social position, then, was inextricably linked to this legal invisibility. Your respectability, your honor, depended entirely on your strict adherence to these norms of seclusion and dependence. A woman who attempted to operate independently in the public sphere, to manage her own finances, or to speak out on political matters, would be immediately branded as disreputable. A hetaira, perhaps, or a woman of loose morals. The social consequences would be severe, ostracizing her from respectable society and often leading to financial ruin. This rigid system meant that your sphere of influence, though profound within the oikos, was largely intangible to the outside world. Your clever household management, your intricate weaving, your quiet piety, these were your contributions, but they were not publicly acknowledged or celebrated in the same way as a man's achievements in politics, war, or philosophy. Your value was measured by your domestic efficiency and your ability to produce legitimate heirs. Your intellectual and legal subjugation ensured that your focus remained squarely on these roles, solidifying the patriarchal structure of ancient Greek society. You've witnessed the rare, fleeting autonomy of religious festivals, and the stark reality of your legal and intellectual limitations within the Athenian oikos. Your mind, though sharp, was intentionally left unsharpened by formal education, confined to the practicalities of household management. But what if your life had unfolded in a different corner of ancient Greece? What if you had been born in Sparta, that enigmatic, military-focused city-state, a world away from the philosophical debates and secluded homes of Athens here? Your education, your upbringing, and your societal purpose would have been radically, astonishingly different. Imagine yourself as a young girl in Sparta. From birth, your value is not solely tied to your ability to manage a household or produce heirs for a single man. Instead, your primary purpose is to be a strong, healthy mother of future Spartan warriors. This fundamental difference in societal goals leads to a revolutionary approach to female upbringing. You are not secluded, you are trained. You are not silenced. You are encouraged to develop physical prowess and a sharp mind, albeit for a very specific, communal purpose. It's like an ancient Greek reverse gender military academy, but for making babies, sounds efficient. Your education begins not in the quiet women's quarters, but in the public sphere, alongside boys, though in separate groups. This is a crucial historical fact. Spartan girls, unlike their Athenian counterparts, received formal, state-sponsored physical education. You would participate in rigorous physical training, running, wrestling, throwing javelins and discuses. The crisp morning air would sting your lungs as you ran through the agora, your muscles burning, your body developing strength and endurance. The sounds of grunts, shouts, and the thud of bodies hitting the ground would be your morning symphony. You'd compete fiercely with other girls, your bodies unburdened by heavy tunics, often wearing short dresses or even nothing at all during exercises. A shocking sight to an Athenian woman. This emphasis on physical fitness was rooted in the belief that strong mothers would produce strong warrior sons, and healthy daughters would ensure the perpetuation of the Spartan state. Beyond physical training, your education in Sparta also included intellectual and artistic pursuits. Though not to the same extent as for boys, you would learn to read and write, not for philosophical debate or political engagement, but for practical reasons managing the family estate, since Spartan men were often absent due to military training. Keeping accounts and understanding official decrees. You would learn to sing and dance, not just for religious festivals, but but as part of communal celebrations and military parades. Imagine your voice, strong and clear, joining in choruses celebrating Spartan victories, your movements graceful and athletic, a stark contrast to the demure, veiled silence expected of an Athenian woman. Your education was designed to make you a robust companion for a warrior, a capable manager of his land, and a proud embodiment of Spartan civic virtue. This extensive public training fostered a sense of camaraderie and confidence among Spartan women that was almost entirely absent in Athens. You would grow up surrounded by other strong, self-assured women, your shared experiences forging unbreakable bonds. You would be taught to speak your mind, not in political assemblies, but within your social circles, and even to offer pointed commentary to men, including your husbands. Spartan women were famously outspoken and known for their wit. Imagine the shock an Athenian man would feel hearing a Spartan woman offer her unvarnished opinion on a matter, unafraid of social censure. This directness was a celebrated aspect of Spartan female character. Your role in marriage was also distinct. While marriages were still often arranged, the emphasis was less on dowry and more on producing healthy children. Spartan women married later than Athenian women, often in their late teens or early 20s, after their bodies were fully developed for childbirth. You might even have a trial marriage, where your husband would visit you secretly at night, and if you conceived a healthy child, the marriage would be formalized. This unconventional approach prioritized reproductive success over traditional social ceremonies. The primary aim was eugenic to produce the best possible offspring for the state. Once married, you would not manage the household in the same secluded way as an Athenian wife. Your husband, a professional soldier, would spend most of his life in military barracks, living communally with other men. You, therefore, would be responsible for managing the family's estate, overseeing the helots the state owned enslaved people who tilled the land, and handling all financial matters. This gave Spartan women a degree of practical power and autonomy over property that was unheard of in other Greek city-states. Historians still debate the true extent of Spartan women's economic power. Some argue they controlled up to 2/5 of all Spartan land, making them uniquely wealthy, while others suggest this was more de jure than de facto influence. Despite these significant differences, a fundamental truth remained. Your ultimate purpose was still defined by your biological role, to bear and raise children for the state. While your education granted you physical and intellectual strength, it was still primarily in service of male warriors in the Spartan military machine. You were not expected to participate in the assembly, or to hold public office, or to debate politics. Your influence, though considerable within the family and through your reputation, did not extend to the formal political sphere. You were essential but still subservient to the male-dominated military and political structures. The Spartan system, while offering you more freedom than your Athenian counterpart, was still a tightly controlled, highly communal existence. Your individuality was subsumed by the needs of the state. Your children, particularly sons, were taken from you at the age of 7 to begin their rigorous state training. While you were proud of their service, the emotional separation would be a profound, constant reality. You were a mother to the state, not just to your own blood. This stark contrast between Sparta and Athens highlights the diverse experiences of women in ancient Greece. In Athens, you were largely confined, educated for domesticity, and legally invisible. In Sparta, you were physically trained, given more public exposure, and held significant economic power. Yet your life was still dictated by the needs of the militaristic state. Both societies, in their own unique ways, treated you as a woman, not as an individual with inherent rights, but as a valuable asset, a crucial piece of property, managed and shaped to serve the broader goals of the male-dominated city-state. Your body, your intellect, your very existence were harnessed for their collective benefit, not your own personal fulfillment. You've explored the diverse realities of womanhood in ancient Greece, from the secluded Athenian oikos to the physically demanding Spartan communal life. You've seen how your upbringing, your legal standing, and even your purpose were meticulously defined by the prevailing male-dominated structures. Now it's time to confront the grand, unsettling paradox at the heart of this celebrated civilization. How could a society that gave the world the very concept of democracy, that celebrated individual liberty for its citizens, simultaneously thrive on the systematic subjugation and treatment of women as property? This profound contradiction, often overlooked in the romanticized narratives of antiquity, permeated every aspect of daily life, creating a constant, unspoken tension beneath the surface of their intellectual and political achievements. This isn't just a philosophical oversight, it's a fundamental pillar of their society. The leisure that allowed Athenian men to engage in politics, philosophy, and military training was directly enabled by your unseen labor and the labor of enslaved individuals. While men debated in the assembly, you were managing the household, spinning wool, preparing meals, and raising their children. Your diligent work in the private sphere freed them to pursue glory and influence in the public sphere. Your productivity, your efficiency, your very being underpinned their entire system of democratic governance and intellectual pursuit. It's a bitter irony, isn't it, that the very foundations of their celebrated freedom rested on the unacknowledged, uncompensated toil of those they deemed less than fully human. Imagine yourself in the bustling marketplace of Athens, a rare public outing, perhaps to purchase provisions, always veiled and accompanied. You walk past the agora, the vibrant heart of the city, where men gather to debate, to vote, to shape the laws that govern their lives. You hear their impassioned speeches about Eleutheria, liberty, and autonomia, self-rule, about the fundamental rights of a citizen. They speak of equality before the law, of the right to free speech in the assembly. These words, ringing with the promise of universal freedom, echo strangely against your own reality. Your legal standing, as you recall, is practically non-existent. You cannot vote, cannot speak in the assembly, cannot even bring a lawsuit without a male guardian. You are a living testament to the fact that their celebrated freedom is a highly exclusive club, and you are decidedly not a member. It's like being at a party where everyone is talking about how awesome the open bar is, but you're only allowed to look at the bottle of water. Philosophers. The very architects of Greek thought surprisingly contributed to this paradox. Aristotle, for instance, in his work on politics, argued that women, like enslaved people, were naturally inferior to men. He believed that women lacked the rational capacity for public life and were best suited to the domestic sphere, existing to serve the household and produce children. He saw the male as naturally superior and the female as naturally subordinate. Much like the soul rules the body, Plato, in his Republic, did propose a more egalitarian system for his ideal guardians, including women. But this was a theoretical construct, far removed from the practical realities of Athenian society. It's truly a head-scratcher to reconcile the intellectual brilliance of these thinkers with their remarkably limited views on gender equality. Maybe they needed more female philosophers to broaden their perspectives. Just a thought. The scale of this female subjugation was pervasive. In Athens, all respectable citizen women lived under the guardianship of a kyrios, father, husband, or son. You were never truly independent. This legal dependency permeated every aspect of your life, from property ownership to marriage decisions. Your dowry, though technically yours, was managed by your husband. You could not conduct business in your own name or own significant property without a male guardian. This widespread patriarchal control wasn't a minor detail. It was the very framework upon which Athenian society was built. Consider the societal narrative. Greek myths and plays, so central to their culture, often depicted powerful goddesses, fierce warriors, and wise prophetesses. Yet, in real life, citizen women were confined and silenced. The celebrated heroines of tragedy, figures like Antigone or Clytemnestra, often met tragic ends precisely because they dared to defy the patriarchal order. This artistic expression of female power coexisted with the practical reality of female powerlessness, creating another layer of paradox. The stories they told themselves glorified female strength, while the society they lived in systematically suppressed it, even in Spartan society, where you might have experienced more physical freedom and greater economic autonomy. The underlying purpose remained the same, serving the needs of the male-dominated state. Your rigorous physical training was for producing healthy warriors. Your management of the estate was to free your husband from military duties. Your outspokenness, a celebrated trait, was primarily within your social circles and family, not in the formal political assembly. You were essential, valued, even respected in your unique way, but still ultimately a means to an end, a crucial component of the military machine, not an independent political actor. You were a more robust, active kind of property, perhaps, but property nonetheless. Historians still debate whether Spartan women's greater freedoms indicate a genuinely more egalitarian society, or just a more pragmatic form of male control to achieve military supremacy. The economic contributions of women, whether in Athens or Sparta, were immense but largely uncompensated and unrecognized. In Athens, your domestic labor, spinning, weaving, cooking, child-rearing, was vital for the functioning of the oikos, the basic economic unit of society. In Sparta, your management of the estate and helots provided the sustenance for your husband and the state. Yet, this labor was not seen as work, in the same way as male labor in the public sphere. It was simply your natural duty, your expected contribution to the household, a given. Your economic value was tied to your reproductive capacity and your efficiency as a manager, not to your individual skill or effort. You were the silent engine of the economy, your efforts powering the public lives of men. This societal structure created a unique psychological landscape for you. You learned to find strength in subtlety, influence in indirect means. You might exert significant informal power within your household, through persuasion, manipulation, or simply through your indispensable role as mistress. You might form strong bonds with other women, creating a female sphere of influence, a network of support and shared understanding. You learn to navigate the world through intermediaries, relying on male relatives to act on your behalf in public matters. This constant mediation of your will, this lack of direct voice, fostered a resilience born of necessity. The paradox of freedom and subjugation in ancient Greece is a powerful historical lesson. It demonstrates how easily a society, even one celebrated for its intellectual and democratic achievements, can rationalize profound inequalities when it benefits a dominant group. The very concept of citizenship itself was gendered, implicitly excluding half the free population from its most fundamental rights. Your life as a woman in ancient Greece was a testament to this inherent contradiction, a quiet counter-narrative to the grand pronouncements of liberty. You existed within a system that simultaneously valued and confined you, celebrated your role while denying your autonomy. Your strength lay not in your public voice, but in your silent endurance, your meticulous labor, and your enduring spirit within the walls that defined your world. Your story, though often unheard, is essential to understanding the true complexity of ancient Greek society. You've confronted the grand, unsettling paradox of ancient Greek society. How it celebrated democracy for men coexisted with the systematic subjugation of women. You understand that your life, whether in Athens or Sparta, was meticulously defined by male-dominated structures, and your value was often measured as property. Now, as our journey nears its end, let's explore the lasting impact of this pervasive gender inequality, the psychological and societal burdens that persisted, subtly shaping lives and limiting potentials, even when the chains of direct ownership were absent. Imagine your later years, perhaps as a respected older woman within your oikos. Your son's now grown and your daughter's married. You have fulfilled your duties, managed your household with efficiency, and perhaps even raised a large family. You are a Karya in the fullest sense, revered within your domestic sphere. The scent of dried herbs and aging wine fills your home, the sounds of your grandchildren's laughter echoing through the women's quarters. Yet, even in this position of domestic authority, the limitations of your past, the ingrained societal norms, still cast a long shadow. Your voice, though perhaps listened to with respect within your family, still has no resonance in the public square. You have witnessed generations of men go to the assembly, fight in wars, debate in the agora, while you and women like you remained largely unseen, unheard, and unacknowledged in the grand narrative of civic life. This profound separation between the private and public spheres had deep psychological consequences. You learned from childhood that your honor, your safety, and your family's reputation depended on your seclusion. This created a profound internal conflict. You might possess keen intelligence, shrewd judgment, and a rich inner world, but society actively discouraged their public expression. You learned to suppress your opinions, to manage your thoughts, to always present a demure and obedient facade. This constant self-censorship, this internalizing of societal expectations, shaped your very personality. You became adept at indirect influence, at subtle persuasion through your husband or sons. But the direct power of public discourse, of shaping laws or policies, remained forever out of reach. The frustration, the quiet yearning for a voice, would linger beneath the surface, a constant hum of unfulfilled potential. It's like being an incredibly talented stage director, but you're only allowed to whisper directions from behind the curtain, and everyone thinks the actors came up with it all themselves. Exhausting. Your economic contributions, while vital for the oikos and, by extension, the state, continue to be largely uncompensated and unrecognized as work. Your spinning, weaving, food preparation, and child rearing were considered natural duties, not skilled labor worthy of public acknowledgement or monetary compensation. Even if your household thrived due to your meticulous management, the financial credit would always go to your husband, your Kyrios. This systemic undervaluation of female labor meant that women rarely accumulated independent wealth or property, keeping them perpetually dependent on male guardians. In Sparta, while you managed the family estate, your efforts were still ultimately for the state's military might, not for your own individual economic empowerment. Your hard work was simply part of the societal machinery. The legal invisibility you experienced from birth persisted throughout your life. You could not testify in court, initiate lawsuits, or conduct major financial transactions without a male guardian. Any property you held like your dowry was managed by your husband. This legal non-existence meant that you were always vulnerable, your security contingent on the goodwill or continued existence of your Kyrios. If your husband died and you had no adult sons, your fate would rest in the hands of his male relatives, who might quickly remarry you off, or perhaps even exploit your dowry. This vulnerability created a lifelong anxiety, a quiet understanding that your fate was never truly in your own hands. Historians still debate the practical implications of this legal invisibility, with some arguing that shrewd women found ways to maneuver within these restrictions, while others emphasize the profound powerlessness it created. The social fabric reinforced these inequalities. Your social interactions remained largely confined to other women. While these female communities offered vital support, camaraderie, and shared understanding, they also served to reinforce the separation between genders. Men and women lived largely separate lives, particularly in Athens, interacting formally only when necessary. This gender segregation, while providing a protected space for women, also limited their exposure to diverse ideas in public discourse, perpetuating a cycle of limited roles. Consider the impact on innovation and societal progress. What ideas were lost? What discoveries were never made because half of the free population was systematically excluded from formal education, scientific inquiry, and philosophical debate? Imagine the potential female Homers, Sophocles, Plato's, or Aristotle's, whose brilliance was confined to the Gynekon, their voices silenced, their insights never shared with the wider world. This intellectual and civic suppression was a profound loss, not just for individual women, but for the entirety of ancient Greek society, limiting its potential for even greater flourishing. The paradox of democracy in ancient Greece, therefore, is not merely a historical footnote, but a profound ethical challenge. It reminds us that ideals of freedom and equality can be selectively applied, benefiting a dominant group while systematically excluding others. The very definition of citizen was inherently male, implicitly denying full humanity and rights to women, enslaved people, and foreigners. The celebrated achievements of ancient Greece stand as a testament to human ingenuity and intellectual power, but also as a stark warning of the dangers of institutionalized inequality. Your life as a woman in this complex society embodies this contradiction. Your resilience, your adaptability, and your quiet endurance within this system are a testament to the strength of the human spirit. You managed households, raised children, participated in essential religious rites, and contributed economically, all while navigating a world that denied your fundamental autonomy. Your story, though often unheard in the dominant narratives, is crucial to understanding the full, complex tapestry of ancient Greek history. It is a reminder that history is not just about battles and kings, but about the everyday lives of ordinary people, and the often invisible struggles they faced. Your quiet dignity, your meticulous labor, and your enduring spirit within the walls that define your world leave a lasting impression, a subtle echo that challenges the grand pronouncements of a seemingly perfect past. You've confronted the grand, unsettling paradox of ancient Greek society, how it celebrated democracy for men coexisted with the systematic subjugation of women. You understand that your life, whether in Athens or Sparta, was meticulously defined by male-dominated structures, and your value was often measured as property. Now, as our journey nears its end, let's explore the lasting impact of this pervasive gender inequality, the psychological and societal burdens that persisted, subtly shaping lives and limiting potentials, even when the chains of direct ownership were absent. Imagine your later years, perhaps as a respected older woman within your oikos. Your son's now grown and your daughter's married. You have fulfilled your duties, managed your household with efficiency, and perhaps even raised a large family. You are a Kyria in the fullest sense, revered within your domestic sphere. The scent of dried herbs and aging wine fills your home, the sounds of your grandchildren's laughter echoing through the women's quarters. Yet, even in this position of domestic authority, the limitations of your past, the ingrained societal norms, still cast a long shadow. Your voice, though perhaps listened to with respect within your family, still has no resonance in the public square. You have witnessed generations of men go to the assembly, fight in wars, debate in the agora, while you and women like you remained largely unseen, unheard, and unacknowledged in the grand narrative of civic life. This profound separation between the private and public spheres had deep psychological consequences. You learned from childhood that your honor, your safety, and your family's reputation depended on your seclusion. This created a profound internal conflict. You might possess keen intelligence, shrewd judgment, and a rich inner world, but society actively discouraged their public expression. You learned to suppress your opinions, to manage your thoughts, to always present a demure and obedient facade. This constant self-censorship, this internalizing of societal expectations, shaped your very personality. You became adept at indirect influence, at subtle persuasion through your husband or sons. But the direct power of public discourse, of shaping laws or policies, remained forever out of reach. The frustration, the quiet yearning for a voice, would linger beneath the surface, a constant hum of unfulfilled potential. It's like being an incredibly talented stage director, but you're only allowed to whisper directions from behind the curtain, and everyone thinks the actors came up with it all themselves. Exhausting. Your economic contributions, while vital for the oikos and, by extension, the state, continue to be largely uncompensated and unrecognized as work. Your spinning, weaving, food preparation, and child rearing were considered natural duties, not skilled labor worthy of public acknowledgement or monetary compensation. Even if your household thrived due to your meticulous management, the financial credit would always go to your husband, your kyrios. This systemic undervaluation of female labor meant that women rarely accumulated independent wealth or property, keeping them perpetually dependent on male guardians. In Sparta, while you managed the family estate, your efforts were still ultimately for the state's military might, not for your own individual economic empowerment. Your hard work was simply part of the societal machinery. The legal invisibility you experienced from birth persisted throughout your life. You could not testify in court, initiate lawsuits, or conduct major financial transactions without a male guardian. Any property you held, like your dowry, was managed by your husband. This legal non-existence meant that you were always vulnerable, your security contingent on the goodwill or continued existence of your kyrios. If your husband died and you had no adult sons, your fate would rest in the hands of his male relatives, who might quickly remarry you off, or perhaps even exploit your dowry. This vulnerability created a lifelong anxiety, a quiet understanding that your fate was never truly in your own hands. Historians still debate the practical implications of this legal invisibility, with some arguing that shrewd women found ways to maneuver within these restrictions, while others emphasize the profound powerlessness it created. The social fabric reinforced these inequalities. Your social interactions remained largely confined to other women. While these female communities offered vital support, camaraderie, and shared understanding, they also served to reinforce the separation between genders. Men and women lived largely separate lives, particularly in Athens, interacting formally only when necessary. This gender segregation, while providing a protected space for women, also limited their exposure to diverse ideas in public discourse, perpetuating a cycle of limited roles. Consider the impact on innovation and societal progress. What ideas were lost? What discoveries were never made because half of the free population was systematically excluded from formal education, scientific inquiry, and philosophical debate? Imagine the potential female Homers, Sophocles, Plato's, or Aristotle's, whose brilliance was confined to the Gynekon, their voices silenced, their insights never shared with the wider world. This intellectual and civic suppression was a profound loss, not just for individual women, but for the entirety of ancient Greek society, limiting its potential for even greater flourishing. The paradox of democracy in ancient Greece, therefore, is not merely a historical footnote, but a profound ethical challenge. It reminds us that ideals of freedom and equality can be selectively applied, benefiting a dominant group while systematically excluding others. The very definition of citizen was inherently male, implicitly denying full humanity and rights to women, enslaved people, and foreigners. The celebrated achievements of ancient Greece stand as a testament to human ingenuity and intellectual power, but also as a stark warning of the dangers of institutionalized inequality. Your life as a woman in this complex society embodies this contradiction. Your resilience, your adaptability, and your quiet endurance within this system are a testament to the strength of the human spirit. You managed households, raised children, participated in essential religious rites, and contributed economically, all while navigating a world that denied your fundamental autonomy. Your story, though often unheard in the dominant narratives, is crucial to understanding the full, complex tapestry of ancient Greek history. It is a reminder that history is not just about battles and kings, but about the everyday lives of ordinary people, and the often invisible struggles they faced. Your quiet dignity, your meticulous labor, and your enduring spirit within the walls that defined your world. Leave a lasting impression, a subtle echo that challenges the grand pronouncements of a seemingly perfect past